This edition of Monocle on Saturday was first broadcast on the 24th of May 2025 on Monocle Radio. Good morning, I'm Carlota Rebelo and this is Monocle on Saturday. We are broadcasting live here at the Monocle Badi market with Visit Portugal at Dufourstrasse 90 in Zürich. Coming up on today's show, we will be speaking to some of the wonderful stallholders to find out more about the Portuguese brands here at the market. Then, the journalist Juliet Linley will look through the week's news and culture. Juliet, good morning. What do you have for us today?
Good morning, Carlota. Well, so many papers today are paying tribute to the visionary photographer from Brazil, Sebastião Salgado. His impact goes so far beyond just the lens, and whether it's in terms of the plight of workers and migrants or even just saving the rainforest, he is such a phenomenal person. We will look at him.
We'll be looking at his life and legacy and check what else is making the news. All that and more coming up on Monocle on Saturday, live from Zurich with me, Carlota Rebelo. But first though, here's the news. Russia has attacked Ukraine's capital Kyiv with drones and missiles, triggering fires in districts throughout the city. The mayor Vitaly Klitschko said that at least 8 people had been injured and that the city's air defense units were in action. A U.S. judge has temporarily blocked plans by the Trump administration to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll foreign students. The Ivy League school said the move was part of a broader effort to retaliate against it for refusing to surrender its academic independence. The court order provides temporary relief to the more than 7,000 international students who are being forced to transfer as a result. Boeing has struck a deal with the U.S. Justice Department to avoid prosecution in a case following 2 fatal crashes involving 737 MAX planes, which killed 346 people. The agreement allows Boeing to avoid being branded as a convicted felon and will see the plane maker pay an additional $444.5 million into a fund for the families of the victims. And British passengers will have to wait until at least October to use e-gates when travelling into the European Union, despite a high-profile agreement being announced at the EU-UK summit earlier this week. The move will be phased in over 6 months until April 2026. I'm Carlota Rebelo and that's the news here on Monocle Radio. And I'm joined now in the studio by Juliet Linley, the journalist and former Vatican correspondent. Hello, Juliet. Good morning.
Bom dia, Carlota.
Bom dia. A chance to practice your Portuguese. I've seen you going around already some of the stalls and finding out more about the brands. What has stood out for you so far?
There's so much, so vibrant, so many different types of products on offer, as well as so many different types of people and entrepreneurs from Portugal who are here bringing Portugal into Dufourstrasse number 90. There was a lovely lady who has jewelry that is inspired by the Atlantic Ocean, if you want. So earrings in the shape of mussels, as well as a chain sort of harking to a anchor. And then I loved the tiles from Friends of Paula. She makes the tiles in Portugal, but she is a Swiss architect who's taken inspiration from the azulejos, as you call them, in Portugal.
And we can actually see them right in front of our studio here. And it's amazing. It really goes to that idea of blending modernity with tradition, right?
So true. And, you know, the traditional ones are perhaps very intricate and maybe the typical blues and yellows. And here she's gone to bright greens and bright blues and more sort of uniform designs, but very, very modern. And you can have your outdoor furniture even kitted out with those tiles.
I sense a home refurb coming your way.
Perhaps. And then the outfits. I mean, so many different types of garments. Isto. Did you see Isto?
So lovely.
Right? These linen tops and shorts and also the long overcoats. I can't remember the name of that brand.
It transports you immediately to the beach, the clothes from Isto. It just makes me think of like warm, breezy summer days.
And I think we're all ready for warm, breezy summer days.
100%. Well, Juliet, of course, as listeners will know, May has been a very busy month for a former Vatican correspondent. And since we have you here, I need to ask you, what's the latest in Pope world?
There's so much going on, isn't it? It's been only 1 month since Pope Francis passed away, and it seems like so much has been happening, and 2 weeks since Cardinal Prevost was elected to become Pope Leo XIV. And everyone is following his every move. They want to see whether he's going to be continuing, if you want, in Francis's vein, or if he's going to be completely in a different direction. And he is very much following along Francis's path, with some exceptions. But certainly he has called, on numerous occasions, called for peace, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's between Israel and Gaza, between Ukraine and Russia. And he has very much, he's been calling in most recent days, which Wednesday was his first public appearance at the general audience, which is held every Wednesday morning, as you know, in St. Peter's Square. He was calling for humanitarian aid to be able to be allowed to be let into Gaza. So there was, differently to previous occasions, he did not call for the release of Israeli hostages. So this was quite significant, because on previous occasions he has always tried to balance the two, if you want. On the one side, calling for the release of the Israeli hostages, and on the other side, calling out the humanitarian tragedy that is in Gaza. And this is perhaps interesting because, however, at the same time, a very prominent American rabbi was saying that there are hopes that Vatican-Jewish relations will improve, perhaps, because you might remember that under Francis, they got very tense. Francis used the word genocide, or is said to have used the word genocide in relation to what is happening in Gaza. And you might remember that at Francis' funeral, in fact, Israel did not send a delegation. They only sent their ambassador to the Holy See. Whereas for Pope Leo's inauguration, which was just 2 weeks ago, or just less than 2 weeks ago, they indeed sent a delegation, and the president of Israel went.
So it really is showing how this is almost not a reset, but a reframing of how the relations between the two could actually go and move forward.
Absolutely. And you know, the rabbi, whose name is Noam Marantz, he was saying he certainly hopes that the Pope, as his predecessors have done, will visit Israel, will make some visits to synagogues. I mean, we can expect that perhaps Leo will make a visit, first of all, to the big, large synagogue in Rome, and also that in general relations will sort of smooth over in comparison to Pope Francis's.
Well, it is interesting, this sort of role that over the past month, really, the Vatican in general has been viewed globally almost as a mediator. You know, that picture at Pope Francis' funeral of Zelensky and Trump meeting, which really was so impactful, and almost this idea like Pope Francis' last act of bringing these two together to try to move forward a discourse. And a month later, we have seen the attempts at progress in some peace talks with Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. Of course, that is not a straightforward process, but it's been the closest of those talks happening that we've seen. And now, as you're describing, almost again a reset when it comes to how the Vatican deals with Israel, Gaza, now with Pope Leo. So are you confident in this kind of like Vatican wave of trying to bring peace to the world? Because at the end of the day, that is the biggest of Christian values, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the Vatican is known for they call it soft diplomacy, yes. Right? So it has been ongoing, sometimes in secret, sometimes it's been more proclaimed. But certainly in this situation, right after the inaugural Mass, Pope Leo met J.D. Vance and Rubio, who were both there for this event. And let's see. The Vatican certainly seems to be setting itself up to play a role in diplomacy. Pope Leo has certainly said himself that he would like to see peace coming to the whole world, and he has perhaps the diplomats who could help. I mean, you've got Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, also saying that her government will certainly cooperate. Some see it as sort of jumping on the bandwagon and wanting to be part of all of it. But you know what? The more efforts there are, the better. Let's see if this Pope will be the one who can manage it.
Well, one way of keeping the mind healthy is by keeping your physique, and this is a sort of clumsy segue to go into an amazing story that you've spotted. And of course, Pope Leo is sort of the first really modern Pope in the sense of, the age of social media, the age of a more connected world, where we've seen for the first time, brothers breaking protocol and giving him a hug, or FaceTime. I think the first call he made home after being inaugurated as the Pope. And the latest is the fact that Italian outlet interviewed Pope Leo's personal trainer. Juliet, an amazing story. Tell me all about it.
So interesting, Carlota. Indeed, as you say, he is a modern Pope, so modern that he has said that he is going to focus on the digital revolution and AI and how it is actually affecting humanity and the workers, and who is at the other end of the receiving end of the advances that AI can bring to humanity. But yes, let's talk about that. So yesterday I happened to be watching the news, and on Italian TV on an afternoon chat show with the very well-known presenter Caterina Balivo, she was in live link up with the Gym Omega in Rome's Prati district, which is right behind the Vatican, very near to the Vatican. And she was talking to Valerio Massella, who is his personal trainer. Now, interestingly, one of the first questions that were asked was like, what did you think when you heard that he was Pope? And what Valerio said was he didn't even know that Prevost was even a priest, let alone a cardinal. And then he was saying how then he later saw, he said, oh, but I recognize that face. And he realized that the Pope had actually been his client for sort of, I think, for the last 2 years. And he used to go 2 to 3 times a week, which is pretty impressive for a gentleman of 69 years old. And actually, the program that he was on was for a 50 to 55-year-old. So that just goes to show how sporty this new Pope of ours is. By the way, Pope Francis was very sporty in his support for football, as opposed to actually doing that.
He was an avid watcher, but not a player.
That is it. Whereas John Paul II, the Polish Pope, was known to be a skier and hiker, and there are some great images of him in his long white outfit, but on the ski slopes.
Do we know what sort of training the Pope was doing with his personal trainer?
So we didn't find out like how heavy his bench presses are, but we did hear that he focuses a lot on posture and on cardio. So he used a treadmill, Carlota. And I wonder if as Pope he will perhaps bring Valerio into the holies, into the Vatican walls to do his training, or whether he might just pop to the gym, maybe with a hat on and sunglasses.
Are you imagining like a yoga session in St. Peter's Square?
Can you imagine? That would be a spiritual moment.
Maybe that's the conversation we need to have. Well, speaking of excellent posture, I'm really happy to say that our editorial chairman, Tyler Brulé, is joining us here. Good morning, Tyler.
Bon dia, good morning.
No yoga for you this morning.
No yoga for me. No, not even any lake this morning. So we're a bit of a hustle here this morning to get things underway. But here we are.
Here we are. And we were teasing the fact that later in the show we'll be speaking to some of the stall holders here at our market. But last night was a bit of a special event. Do you want to tell our listeners all about it? It was quite busy.
It was a special preview last night. So we had, of course, subscribers from near and far. Also, some of our patrons also showed up as well. So Monocle patrons are people who are really sort of a special tier. It's a special fan base. It's a special level of dedication. So we're hosting a table for them. We had 2 ambassadors here last night. They kicked things off. Both Portugal's ambassador to the UN in Geneva and also their ambassador to Switzerland in Bern. And they sort of, well, at least at the start, the ambassador to Switzerland really sort of set the tone in terms of the bilateral relations between these two countries. I think also Portugal's position in the world. I liked sort of his boldness when he said that that we discovered the world, which sometimes you could imagine maybe in more recent times that people would be offended by that statement and there'd be a lot of outrage. It was funny, and hey, listen, it was largely true in many ways as well. I also like this other idea as well. We were hearing from Claudia, who oversees Portugal tourism, and she was saying, as well, that people are only discovering Portugal now. And I was sort of thinking at the time, maybe that's the case because, I'm not saying the doors were closed, but Portugal was actually just too busy out in the world to be hosting people potentially.
No one was home.
Nevertheless, we were hosting people last night, and as you said, it was a preview moment for people to come and experience, of course, many of the brands that we have. They're not just brands. I mean, we have also just wonderful makers here. There's extraordinary craftsmanship when I look around.
No, and it's been amazing we were just talking about, for example, right in front of us, we have a modern take on some of the traditional azulejos and how, this combination of heritage with the traditional way of making things, but then you bring in all this young and new know-how, a new fresh perspective onto the world.
And also marketing know-how, because
Yeah.
that was the topic we were talking about last night. It's not a case that you suddenly have wonderful craftspeople who can make, I'm looking across the room here, who can do amazing woven purses and bags. This has been with us for a very long time. But it's how do you market them? How do you brand them? And I think everyone sort of agrees that this has been a challenge, if I can say this. I mean, as the Portuguese, there's a certain humility, there's a modesty, not as much sort of chest beating as you might get across the border.
We're not the best at selling ourselves.
And I think that has been the challenge. I mean, you and I were laughing about it a little bit last night, but is there room at one of the universities in Portugal to really start a global masterclass in branding and marketing? Because there's so much know-how. But the question is, of course, how do you get it, of course, stacked high in the right department stores in Paris or Tokyo?
So what I'm hearing is that Tyler Rebelo might be giving a masterclass in Lisbon for how to brand yourself.
Yeah, and Carlota is going to be doing the backup act as well on that.
Always. Tyler, great to have you join us here on the show. Of course, we'll be checking in with you and with a lot of people here at the market throughout the day. But first, as regular listeners know, the host for this program is Georgina Godwin, but she has been traveling. So let's hear a dispatch from Sydney.
Hello Carlota, all our Zürich studio crew and of course our lovely Monocle on Saturday listeners. I've moved on from Auckland and I must just tell you that I was hugely impressed by the departure facilities at the airport there. An area in the bathrooms with decent lighting and a flat surface for handbags so you can brush your teeth and do your makeup, extraordinary views and massage chairs at the gate. Well, now I'm in Sydney, where absolutely torrential rain is battering the city. The streets are running with water, transport's been affected, but still, the audiences turn out for Sydney Writers' Festival. It's held in Carriage Works, a huge arts venue which was formerly a railway workshop. Now home to several theatres and bespoke Writers' Festival spaces, it's the perfect venue for this festival, considered one of the top in the world. It also lays on a fabulous cultural programme for visiting artists. We went to Taronga Zoo on the seaside, which was set against that iconic harbour view. We fed kangaroos, stroked pythons, that's not a metaphor, and photographed each other with sleepy koalas. We had a tour of Sydney Opera House and a traditional welcome to country ceremonial tea, as well as a fabulous gala opening event, which included the authors Jeanette Winterson and Lem Sissay. I've had several events which will conclude in a conversation with the previous Booker Prize winner Alan Hollinghurst. We're old friends, so it will feel more like a chat around my dining room table, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But then, of course, there's the arduous trek home, hours and hours via Singapore, and a couple of days back in the studio on The Globalist and The Briefing and possibly The Daily too. And then a Monocle Radio first. Next weekend, Monocle on Saturday will be coming to you live from Hay Festival in Wales. That's right, we'll be broadcasting in front of a live audience from Hay on Wye. Why not join us?
Thank you, Georgina. That was, of course, Monocle's Georgina Godwin. Now, as mentioned, we are here all day today at the Badi market in collaboration with Visit Portugal, showcasing a couple of the wonderful brands helping tell this story that we were just discussing about how Made in Portugal is having a bit of a revival. I want to say that. And I'm really happy to say that two of the brand owners are joining me here. We have João Ribeiro from Fundamento and also Filipe Belo from Portugal Manual. Good morning, guys.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Bom dia.
João, let's start with you because Fundamento, can see your brand from here. This beautiful olive oil bottle. I think yesterday, as soon as you were putting out and setting things down, I was telling you how much I love the illustrations on it. Tell us the story of your brand.
So Fundamento is basically a story of a bit my personal story. So I grew up in a farm in the south of Portugal. My family's in the agriculture business. All my life I tried to run away from it. But I live abroad for many years, and I think the missing home and Portugal and everything kind of made me to create the project. And that's why we call it Fundamento. So kind of going back to my origins, spending more time at home, spending more time with my family, and of course the idea of trying kind of to bring some progress to the olive oil industry in Portugal. Something that you touched before about the marketing and the branding, that's something that we are focusing as well, because we believe that that's a way to kind of give more value to the products in Portugal and have a rich and kind of global audience as well.
How do you, because olive oil is quite a traditional industry in Portugal, how is Fundamento bringing that side of, being a fresh brand, a new brand? How are you showing how olive oil can be done in a different way and marketed in a different way?
Yes, so on the production side, it's a very simple process. So we are not changing that. It's kind of, we know it is. It's organic, extra virgin, so kind of premium, top quality. The two big advantages that we want to focus, one is the design, as I mentioned. So we work with a Portuguese artist, Lourenço Providencia, to do the illustration that kind of reflects a bit what we want for the brand. And on the other side, something that I'm very passionate about is the transparency side of the project. So the olive oil industry has kind of counterfeit, a bit of transparency issue. So we want to push back on that and be very transparent and honest with our customers and tell them where the olive oil is produced, what are we paying to the suppliers, the producers, etc. So kind of have a full or radical transparency. If you want.
Well, and that relationship with producers, with the local contacts is so important for this conversation, not just with your brand Fundamento, but with a lot of the brands you represent, Filipe, in Portugal, Manuel. And yesterday you were telling us in last night's event a bit about the story of the collective, and it's essentially a collective bringing together a lot of these independent makers and brands and artisans. How do you feel that narrative plays out for you? Are you is the importance of working with the local talent something that people are paying more attention to now?
Well, yes. I think after all of this growth of the tourism in Portugal, we felt this need to find the local people. So we don't want to see the cafe and the restaurant that you find everywhere in the world. So now the people who are visiting us, they try to search and to find the local people. So with our network, we want to show this new business, this new kind of doing craftsmanship in Portugal. So we can combine these two ways, in the touristic way, in the commercial way.
Let's talk about some of the brands that you have here at the market, that you are representing here at the market, because Portugal Manuel has 90 brands under their umbrella, but obviously you couldn't bring 90 brands with you, otherwise it would be just the Filipe market. But we want to encourage people to stop by today. So tell us about some. We have Gruel that makes the amazing, beautiful rugs. Tell us about Gruel and the other brands too.
Yes, we selected 5 brands, and one of those is Gur, that you are talking about. It's rug in other way around. So it's a brand from Oporto. So it's a really old technique of typical rugs. But Célia Esteves, she's the founder. She invites international and national designers to do the paintings, to do the draws. And then we have this amazing piece of art, so rugs that you can put on the walls. Then we bring also 2 jewelry brands, and I just realized yesterday both of them are architectures as well. Schievel and Telma. So one of them from Oporto and another one from Lisbon. And Tonho Bell. Well, Tonho Bell was a success yesterday. So there's why I don't have many baskets, but I still have some.
Tonho Bell is this beautiful wicker handbags almost. It's a play on the tradition of wicker weaving.
Yes, it's a really traditional bag, but with a renewed way of doing the things. So is quite like a pearl.
Yeah, they're beautiful, and you could almost pass them off as briefcases if you wanted to, because you can fit A4 pieces of paper in it, and then they've got this beautiful leather handles which just add that touch. And you can also have a strap, I think you said, so you can hang it. And I was just
I sense a customer in you.
I know. I need to go and check out the prices.
Yes, you absolutely do. Joanne, to bring you in, because olive oil tends to be at these sort of events the thing that, it's a perfect gift, isn't it? And particularly more so when it has an amazing story like the one you're telling. But I'm always fascinated because I feel like every different olive oil creator has their take on how it should be tasted. Are you sip the olive oil, or do you taste it with bread? What's your take on how to savor olive oil?
Yeah, I would just have it with bread. I think we can make it very simple, and we don't need to go very professional. So definitely with bread, I would recommend. And something that we also say to our customers here is, well, summer is coming, so of course with salads. But another way to really enjoy the fundamental olive oil is with ice cream. So either with vanilla ice cream or fior di latte, for example. You can do an amazing show at your place. You invite some friends over, and then for dessert you put this ice cream on the table. You bring the olive oil, people help themselves, and then a bit of sea salt in the end. It's a show and really
that's
nice.
Something.
I love it. I tried it for the first time. I tried it for the first time last year, and I'm a convert now. Yeah,
I have never seen that in Italy, and I was just so curious because there are so many countries that you associate with olive oil production. I come from Italy, so like a lot of Italians talk about their olive oil being the best, and you've got Greece, you've got obviously Spain. What is it about the Portuguese olive oil that you're going to convince us all that we should forget about the other countries?
Yeah, well, Portugal is in a kind of a different location. So an olive oil, basically olive oil is fresh juice, right? So the terroir plays a huge role on the process. So there is no kind of apart from mechanical process, there's no chemicals or something extra. So really reflects the place where it's coming, right? And I would highly recommend people to try the Portuguese varieties, because they are just from Portugal, and you can only have them in Portugal, and they really reflect the terroir, the land, kind of the hardship. Especially the one that we have, it's an olive oil from Trás-os-Montes, so kind of up north, so northeast of Portugal, and it's a region kind of isolated from everything and everyone, very hilly, very rocky as well, and of course that transmits to the olive oil, and you can see the character, the bitterness, the spiciness as well. So all of that is kind of transmitted into the product.
Well, the market is starting to get busy, and as you two were talking, I can see your stalls. We're starting to have some people, so we will release João and
Don't lose your business.
Back to the market, and of course we will be hearing from you and from some of the other brands throughout the day. But thank you for now for joining us here on Monocle Radio. Thank you, Juliet. Let's stay with you, because staying not necessarily on a Portuguese connection, but a Lusophone connection. Some news that we had last night of the iconic photographer Sebastião Salgado, who sadly passed away. Now, as a disclaimer to our listeners, of course, you have had a personal relationship as well with the Salgado family, and this is someone you knew intimately. So I'm really touched and curious to have you here on the show to tell us about what it was like to meet such a wonderful man.
This is quite shocking news. He was 81, and you might be tempted to think, well, that was a good age. But this was no normal 81-year-old. The energy this man had, the passion with which he went about projecting what he definitely wanted to be his legacy, which was restoring and reforesting the Amazon forest, the rainforest, the Mata Atlântica, the Atlantic rainforest, as well as having taken so many photos of the Amazon forest. This was a man who he went too early. And having been to Brazil, where he created with his wife, who is an architect herself, and who the two of them have been working and living together and creating a family together ever since they left Brazil in 1969, when there was a military regime, when they both were very politically active, and they moved to Paris. This is something that they created together, the Instituto Terra, precisely where he was born. He was born in Aimorés in Minas Gerais, in Brazil, and it is on the land that was his own family's cattle farm. And this is such an interesting story because Sébastien started off as an economist. At the age of 26, his wife gives him a camera and he discovers photography. And then he became a journalist photographer, so a reporter. And he covered wars, and particularly the Balkan Wars, but also Rwanda. And Rwanda in 94 was the turning point for him in his life. And he himself says it left him broken. So many tens of thousands of bodies and corpses that he was having to take photos of. So many broken lives broke him, and he had a breakdown. He tells this. And where did he go to try and rest and recuperate? He went back to his own country, to his own land, to his family's cattle farm, only to find that what used to be a lush rainforest had been decimated by so many years of cutting down trees to make way for the cattle, that he found a broken landscape, as broken as his soul was. And that's when he left journalistic photography and dedicated himself to taking photos of nature, which brought about the exhibitions of Genesis, for instance, which is also a book. He took photos of manual labor workers, of migrants, of the Amazon forest. And all of this brought to his wanting to create a legacy of replanting those forests that had been so completely devastated by the cattle farmers. And that is what he is doing, tree by tree.
I was reading earlier about how through Instituto Terra, more than 2 million trees have been planted and, revitalized over 2,000 springs, so related to water, and bringing back life to such an important part of our world, because there's a reason why the Amazon is often described as the Earth's lung, because it's such an essential, it's essential to life.
Yeah. And when you go there, you actually see they have a nursery in which they are growing seedlings, and you are planting those trees. I imagined before going there that you just kind of like throw the seeds, sow the seeds, and trees will grow. You're actually having to plant every single tree. So the local communities are all involved. You've got scientists and researchers all involved with this institute. But most of all, you have this, or you had until yesterday, this driving force of this photographer with such a huge passion for changing things and changing the world.
Well, one of the things that will definitely endure, it's his legacy, because as you were saying, there are incredible black and white photographs that chronicled so many of the world's ills and some of the most horrible history of wars, of famine. Salgado's passion really came through the lens, and just last year the Sony World Photography Awards gave him an outstanding contribution to photography award, recognizing his entire career. And there's plenty of photography books that he published. I know that with the director Wim Wenders and his son, they released a documentary talking about this idea of protecting the earth, so viewers and listeners can continue to enjoy his legacy, and it's a great way of honoring Sebastião Salgado, who sadly passed away yesterday at the age of 81. Juliet, thank you very much for joining us here on Monocle on Saturday, and that's all for today's edition of the program. Many thanks to our producer and studio engineer here in Zurich, Desiree Bandley, and also to Lily Austin back in London, and to my guests here, Juliet Linley, João Ribeiro, and Filipa Bello. Monocle on Saturday returns next weekend. I'm Carlota Rebelo. Thanks for listening.